I had a discussion with Drew today. Timing's irrelevant.
Yeah. Is that something, do you have a chance to talk to Carrick and Trocheck, and if so, what do you tell them?
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course we do. And we tell them the truth. We're honest with them, and they deserve that. And so obviously it's not an easy circumstance for those guys. They're great teammates. You know, these guys have been a big part of this team this year and in years past. And so, as I said to you guys this morning, it's not an easy circumstance, but we're doing our very best to try to handle it the right way.
What did you think about the way your team responded, knowing those were circumstances were over?
Yeah, I thought it was a tough start to the game.
Yeah.
You know, I wish I had an answer for that, but I also understand, like this is, it's not an easy circumstance. We scratch, we don't play Troch, Sam, all this happens today, and these guys they're a close-knit group, they're friends, they're teammates, and it affects people. So we're trying to do our best to, focus on the task at hand. I thought we grabbed a hold of it after that. I give the guys a lot of credit. I thought we played hard. I thought we got better as the game went on. And then we had a little bit of success. So we scored a couple of goals. I think that always helps with the energy, and the game is so much momentum. And, in the third, obviously we grabbed some momentum, but we were able to stack a few shifts in a row together. And ultimately that led to some of the goals that we got. So, but I'm happy for the players. I think it's nice for them to win at home. It's nice for them to feel good about what went on out there.
Melash scores his first. Just with everything going on, how nice is it to have a moment like that where you kind of see the joy of that?
It's great. I think everybody gets excited when they see, a player like that get his first NHL goal. I think everybody always remembers that one. You never forget it. And, it was a really nice goal on top of that. But you can just see the joy that all the players feel for Yarrow when he's able to score his first NHL goal. It's great for the whole team.
Mike, you had the comeback against Columbus, and then this one, a strong third period. It's been a tough year, and you have 20 games left. I mean, what is this a moment where you can learn some things about guys and learn how they can maybe react when it's tough, and that can carry them?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's revealing of everybody's character, and we have choices to make and how we can approach this. And, we've had conversations around that. These guys are good pros. They have a lot of pride, and there's always something to play for. And I think our guys understand that. The biggest thing is playing for each other and making sure that we live up to, the standard that we're trying to set for ourselves day in and day out. And, I think it always starts with leadership. I thought our leaders on the ice tonight did a great job in the response, after, giving up a goal in the first, 15 seconds of the period. It's never an easy way to start the game, but, I certainly liked how we responded after that. And it always starts with the leadership group there. I thought those guys did a terrific job tonight.
Mike, what have you learned about Will Kulie when it comes to leadership? 2 years ago, he's considered a young guy. He still is a young guy, but obviously, with pieces moving out, his responsibility and role probably elevates.
Yeah, Will's a great kid. He works hard. He's a real good player. And, as you said, when you start to establish yourself in the league, I think leadership goes hand in hand with that. And so he's certainly one of the younger guys that we look to take on a leadership role with some of the other younger players. And the biggest way he leads for me is just through his example and just playing the game hard and playing the game the right way with the right intentions. He's a competitive guy. He's a good player. And I think, I think he's doing a good job in trying to walk the walk, so to speak. And I think that helps the group. So for me, without a doubt, I think he's a guy that will be looked upon moving forward to be part of that of that leadership group and how this team proceeds moving forward.
In addition to Kulie, guys like Lafreniere and Schneider, two guys that have also been seen as part of the young group, just does their role on leadership elevate as well?
Of course, I think it goes hand in hand as they start to establish themselves, and leadership, I think, is something that every player on the team is responsible to bring an element to that. I don't know that it's designated to a finite group of players. My experience has been that on some of the best teams that leadership manifests itself in so many different ways, and people lead differently. Not everybody's a rah-rah guy, for example. Some guys just lead quietly through their example. Other guys are rah-rah guys, and so, but there's always opportunities, whether it be in the locker room, during meetings, in practice, during the games themselves, on the bench, and during commercial breaks. There's so many different moments where there's opportunities for players to step up and provide some leadership for guys. And so I think it's everybody's responsibility on the roster to do that. And some of these guys that are emerging with establishing themselves as NHL players, I think they take on a little bit more of a responsibility in that regard, and these guys are doing it.
Like going forward,
Last one.
after tomorrow, obviously, it's tough as a player to go out and perform when there are so many things that are unknown, I guess, with the trade deadline tomorrow. Do you think after it's done and you guys know where they stand and the direction, I guess, of the organization, it just becomes a little bit easier to put that aside and play the games?
Yeah, I think for sure it does, that uncertainty is very tangible right now. I think when the deadline is officially over, we know that we're a team here for the rest of the year. And, there's a little bit of assurance or certainty around that. And I think that helps guys. So, I would like to believe that, once we get through the next 24 hours, we've got an opportunity to look around our locker room and say, okay, here's the group here. Now let's rally around one another and put our best effort forward every single day.